All right, so we have LOA Ambassador Max Siegel and his teammate Russell Henry joining us. They recently competed and finished first in the 2023 Expedition Colorado race. They raced across the Rockies by kayak, mountain bike, and foot, all while being at high altitude, hovering between 13,000 and 10,000 feet in elevation. Total stats for Max and Russell, total race time was 60 hours and 26 minutes. Total miles, 194. So 20 miles by kayak, 73 miles on foot, 101 miles on mountain bike. And then finally, total elevation gain, a mind-blowing 27,756 feet. Amazing. Again, congratulations on winning the Expedition Colorado race. What's it feel like to win, and what were your expectations for this?
It feels good. I'd say our expectations, our hopes of this race was mostly just to link up and do something fun and hard together, really. So we went into it with expectations our goals were to finish and have a good time and maybe be competitive. But Max had never done an adventure race before. I'm new to the sport, so we definitely weren't going in it with the expectation to win. But I think as we started racing, we were like, oh wow, we're actually pretty good at this. We could do pretty well. And then it all kind of worked out.
Yeah, my total goal was to finish the race. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. It's like 3 days long. And so I had never done anything like it. So my goal was literally just to cross the finish line. And to be competitive was like just a bonus. And like Russell said, the whole reason we did this race was really just to hang out again, because we don't live near each other. He's in Canada and I'm in Colorado. So to be able to just spend time with your buddy in the woods was like the goal. And then all the other stuff was just kind of the bonus, the icing on the cake. It was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, just to finish a race like this is super impressive, but obviously to win, I mean, that's a whole other level of excitement, surprise, and cherry on top. Talk us through the challenges of a race like this.
I'd say for me, the biggest challenge was no sleep. I'm like a big 10-hour night sleeper kind of person. So, 9 o'clock, the sun goes down and I'm ready for bed. And so to do a race where like the sun goes down and you have to push through the entire night and then the entire next day and then the entire next night. And man, the sleep deprivation is kind of the biggest thing that got me when I was out there. And it kind of comes in waves, right? You like hit this low at 2 a.m. and then I was interesting because when the sun came up on the second day, I like got my natural rhythm high again because I'm a morning person. So it was pretty cool to see how those sort of body waves came with the lack of sleep. But that was my biggest hurdle for sure.
Yeah, and for me, I had a lot more hurdles than Max. The sleep deprivation definitely hits me. I'm not the best at sleep deprivation. It was that mixed with the high altitude that really disturbed me. I grew up at sea level on the British Columbia coast, and I live at 600 feet. And it would have been ideal if I had come to Colorado like a couple weeks before the race, but there was my brother's wedding leading up to it, which was on the coast, so right at sea level. I flew there, got there the day before the race, basically. So I was not acclimatized at all. And altitude is legit. It's really hard. So I was sucking wind most of the way. The paddling, so I'm a paddler by nature, like that's my thing. So paddling felt really strong, but there wasn't a ton of paddling in this race. So I started off strong, and then basically any hills, I was just like sucking wind, and then I also had a bit of like a cold that kind of came on throughout the race, and that added to my struggles. And just yeah, I had a time. I had some struggles, and Max, I was basically just chasing Max the whole time, trying not to slow him down too much. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, how do you even train and prepare for a race like this? So you mentioned sleep deprivation. I mean, do you try to train without sleeping? I mean, obviously, altitude trainings seems to be important if you have that opportunity. But talk through what you did to train and prepare, if anything.
Yeah, this is like the sleep deprivation is something that I don't know how to train for that. I think it's just figuring out like how much caffeine and how regularly you need caffeine. It's kind of all I've figured out. Um, and like not only caffeine, but just like keeping your body fueled with water and food and stuff. I think there's a lot of times where you think you're crashing from sleep, but really it's a medley of there's the sleep compiled with, oh, you haven't been eating that well, or you haven't been drinking enough, or you're low in electrolytes, things like that. So just figuring out how to fuel yourself helps with the sleep deprivation the most, I'd say. And then for fitness, this is like, again, it's like, it's not like a high intensity activity where you can't just like go run wind sprints or go crank on a mountain bike. I think the only way to train for these races is just go do really hard, really long things in the mountains. So I'd been coming off a couple other races that I did in May and June. So I was kind of feeding off of that kind of baseline fitness I had. I've been doing a lot of paddling leading up to the race, mostly just out of like my personal passion and my work. But Max had been getting out in the mountains a bunch too. So
Well, I
yeah.
think both of us were a little bit disadvantaged because we work on boats together, and I was just working a contract for 6 weeks on this boat out at sea level, and my flight home was a week before the race. And so for me to train on the boat is really complicated because I'm not like I'm really bad at like running on a treadmill. So yeah, I was pretty nervous because I had about a week at home to like get back out in the real mountains and get some altitude in and just kind of get ready for the race, which is kind of when you're supposed to be tapering. So I was like kind of balancing, not pushing it too hard, but also trying to get that baseline back. So it was a tricky one for this race.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really. I mean, it sounds like you guys are both pretty active throughout the year, though. Again, doing more of these long distance activities. So even though you were struggling a little bit with getting that altitude training the last few weeks, it's not like it was couch to adventure race for you guys.
Mhm.
Talk through. I know during your challenges, you experienced quite a few lows. So how did you push through your lows? And it sounds like you had multiple over the weekend.
I think this is where teamwork really plays in because like
Mhm.
I hit the first low for sure. The first night at 2 o'clock in the morning, we got to this aid station and I overate because I was like all excited about hot food, and you've been eating sandwiches for like 12 hours. So I'm like cramming my face with McMuffins and like eggs and bacon, and just I like grabbed an extra one on the go right before we left, even though I was already super full. So anyways, like I hit this weird like food coma thing and sleep deprivation at 2 a.m. when I was like, Russell, dude, I think I'm gonna throw up on the trail. Like, and I didn't want to throw up because I would have lost all those calories that I kind of needed for the rest of the day. So I was struggling, and like if I was alone, it would have been a whole different story. Maybe I would have like sat on the trail for an hour, but Russell was like, dude, we got to keep moving. We got to go. Let's go. And so you don't want to let your teammate down. And so you kind of feel like you just have to keep moving your feet and going with them. And so there is this component of having other people depending on you that kind of forces you to like lift up beyond those challenges, I think. And you don't want to let them down, which is a huge component of these races because it's just such a long time out there that, for you to be like, yeah, my stomach hurts is like, it'd be a real bummer for the rest of the team to be like waiting on you because you ate too much food.
Yeah, totally. It's like You can also do these races solo, and that that is so much harder. There was actually a guy, a solo racer that was ahead of us. That was he went out with a really fast pace, and we thought he was gone. But having done a few adventure races before, I kind of knew. I was like, this is a long race. He could blow up, like something could happen. And Max was kind of like, he's gone, he's done, he's destroyed us. But sure enough, he again, an amazing athlete, but he blew up just from like not pacing. I mean, his legs all swole up like crazy, but also he started hallucinating and didn't have that team support, I think, to like push him past, push him through that. And like Max said, I think there's so much like unsaid pressure of like not wanting to let your teammate down, of just pushing through these things. On the race, I definitely hit the biggest low for sure, and probably the biggest low I've ever hit on an endurance event. On the second night at like midnight, I hit this level of sleep deprivation, altitude sickness, like malnourishment cocktail that just put me down. I started slurring my speech. I was confused. I just like could hardly move. And Max was there, and I could tell that he was a little uncomfortable and didn't know how to support me in that. But really, it's just like we got to keep moving. We're out here in the woods, in the dark. It's cold. Like we can't stop right now. So it's just like you just got to keep up, like get going. And Max obviously like encouraged me, like, also you got to eat some food, you got to drink some water, get back on your bike. And then we kept going, and I was kept kind of hallucinating. I thought there was a third teammate riding with us for an hour. I thought this like 10-minute bike descent took 2 hours. It was insane. We were going down, and I was just like, we're in a vortex. This is a never-ending loop. And then eventually I got nauseous and I puked my guts out. I puked everything out, and then I came to, and I was like, wow, I'm back. Let's go. So I guess it was the puking that really bounced me out of it, but it was that teamwork and that pressure to just like keep going with my buddy that got me to that point of being able to like rid my body of the demons. Yeah.
I really love the idea of the team dynamic, the team race versus, obviously there was the option to run solo. What are one or two really important characteristics to look for in a teammate if you're doing some kind of race like this?
I think that's a huge challenge. I mean, you're about to spend like 80 hours very intimately with someone, and there's so many things that go into it. First of all, pacing, like you need to be with someone who can be at your level, because you don't want to be like either the slow one who's like they're waiting on, or super fast and then just constantly moving slow. So you first need to find someone like that just matches your level, but then you need to have like that connection, the energy to be able to pump each other up when you're low. You have to have the humor, you have to have the good banter. I mean, it has to be in some ways like a best friend out there, to me at least. This is kind of like, because when Russell came out, he said his knee was giving him issues and he might not be able to do the race. And I was talking to friends, and my friends were all like, oh, you should maybe use this guy, or like have this guy come out and do it. And I'm like, it doesn't really work like that. Like I can't just like have some random guy out there with me. Like I need to be either with my best bud or like do it alone, because you can't just take a risk on some stranger or somebody that you don't want to be out there with for 80 hours. Like you really need that connection with that person.
Yeah, totally. I think I was telling Max during the race, we talked about it a bunch, how I think finding an expedition partner, and this is for long multi-month expeditions, or also something like this where it's like such high intensity, just when you reach your absolute low and you're hitting these walls, I think finding the perfect partner for that is almost as hard as finding a perfect life partner. Like they really need to get you. You need to like, yeah, you need to be able to laugh at your flaws and your mistakes. I think not take yourself too seriously, but still be able to push and push each other hard. Yeah.
Yeah, they are seeing you at your worst, but also seeing you at the most joyous moments. And all of this, you're pushing each other to be better. So yeah, I mean, that's a great analogy. And talk through a little bit more the overall race strategy. I know you had a lot of decision points at each checkpoint, whether to rest, keep going. Yeah, if you guys can share your experience there.
Yeah, basically strategy on this race. This was a length of adventure race that I'd never done before. So 3.5 days was kind of the cap. I'd done a 1-day race before. I'd done a longer race where we had to drop out after about 3 days. So it became kind of equivalent to that mostly for me. And what I told Max beforehand was it's just about constant movement. It's just like keeping ourselves moving nonstop, trying to eat on the go, trying to fuel on the go, changing layers on the go, stopping in transition areas only as not as a break, but as a break by changing your sport. So you get in there, you do your thing, and it's really tempting to just sit down for half an hour and try to massage or whatever. But really, like changing from on your feet to on your bike is such a break. You get on your bike, and you're like, wow, I'm fresh, even though you've been racing for 2 days. So yeah, I'd say that was one of our big strategies, was just like keep moving. Yeah.
Yeah, Russell was kind of he was the head honcho for all the strategy, because like I came into this with no prior experience and no knowledge of what to do. And I kind of leaned on him. I was like, dude, what do we do for sleep? What do we do for nutrition? What do we do for like turn points? And so he really like spearheaded it all, which was awesome, because it felt like going into something with a person that had experience and you could kind of lean on them, which was really great to have. As I can see how it would be chaotic if you were like both completely new to the sport and had never done a race, and you just like nobody knew what was going on. So to have Russell on the team was like, I think that was probably part of the reason why we ended up doing so well, for sure.
What's a piece of advice you would give to someone that wants to compete in a race like this?
It's a good question. I mean, my piece of advice was, or would be, find your best friend and get out there and do it. Because like that for me was what made this race. Like being out there with Russell, like I didn't even care what we were doing. I was just having fun, you know, and that made the race so enjoyable and also manageable and doable. It's like I was just having a good time with my buddy, you know. And so if you can find that and like be out there with your friend, it doesn't feel like you're on this grueling 3-day race. It feels like you're just having a good time with your buddy in the woods. And so that to me was like the best part of the entire journey, and made it so much fun and not like a grueling race, you know. It made it just a great adventure with a bud.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Just find your best bud and get after it. And then even if you're not doing that well, you're still having a wicked time, a wicked adventure in the woods with your friend.
That's just generally great life advice. You know, surround yourself with good people that you want to be around, and it makes even the grueling times a little bit better.
There you go.
So what's next for you guys?
Oh boy. Life is taken off with various things. Max and I, like, we finished the race and we're like, all right, let's do this again. Let's meet up again. Let's do another Sufferfest. But we both work contract work, and all our schedules are kind of just like, both our schedules are just kind of jumbled, not super lining up for the next while. So we're definitely setting our sights on a bigger race next summer. Expedition Oregon. So it's a full week-long race that's on the Adventure Racing World Series, and it'll have a more competitive feel. There'll be some pro teams. Yeah, I think doing this race and doing well in it has given us the the view that like, oh wow, we can be competitive in this sport. So that'll be a team of 4. So we'll kind of compile with some folks that I know back here in BC probably, and set our sights on doing well in that race. Yeah.
Well, that's big. Looking forward to seeing and hearing how that goes. It sounds like you have 2 open spots, and
There you go.
you guys taking applications, or you guys have your eyes. Anything else you'd like to add about your overall experience?
I think it's a great journey to like discover, things about you never knew. Like for me, I never knew how my body was going to react without sleep, or how I'm going to do after 3 days of just physical, like walking and biking and, things that you don't just know because you don't do this on a day-to-day basis. So it's a kind of a discovery in some ways for how you are and what happens to you after these long endurance activities. So for me, that was a really cool part of it.
Yeah. I think I've done like I said, like I did one multi-day race before, and then I've done some other bigger adventures where you push through the night, and every time I'm always reminded that your body's like can do amazing things as long as you just don't sit down. If you just keep going, you can do amazing things. And after this race, lots of people are just like, wow, that's incredible, you guys push so hard. But really, like if you have a pretty good level of fitness, you can do this. You just keep moving. And then I'm always shocked, like, wow, we just moved for 3 days straight, basically, with a tiny little bit of sleep in there. Like your body can do incredible things.
Yeah, the object in motion. I mean, you just keep going. As soon as you are stopped at rest, that's it's really hard to get your momentum back. So that's,
Yeah, totally.
I mean, 60 hours. So obviously you guys were in motion quite a bit, but again, that's I mean, huge congratulations. I mean, it's no small feat, and it sounds like not only is this something you can be proud of, but you had a blast doing it with each other. And I know you're Russell, you're still recovering a little bit, so I hope you continue to heal and get back to 100% soon.
Thank you.
All right.